Hello and welcome back to the Little Scale Cars YouTube channel. Today in the review box we have the Hot Wheels MG Metro 6R4. This Group B monster rally car from way back in the day is pretty new to Team Transport, so let's go ahead and see if this one is worth adding to your collections. Let's get the review started by looking at the casting. So just in hand, our proportions are pretty good. Not perfect, but pretty close. I'll go ahead and pop a picture of the real-life car up in the top right corner there. So, as you can see, it looks pretty close. Our proportions are kind of a small but tall, I would call it. They're short as like a wheelbase length, but the car itself, the casting for a Hot Wheel, is actually on the taller side. So, most likely not really 1/64th, but close enough, who really cares. Getting into some of our casting interesting things. Our front wing here, that's what I'm going to call it because I'm really not 100% certain what it is. This is plastic. Our headlights are also plastic, kind of little inserts there. We do have casted in mirrors. As far as some other casted details, we have this side intake piece is casted in there. There's some etching around the sides of it, I suppose. Some cool details. We just went over the Mini GT Lancia Stratus that actually had rubber mud flaps. Well, obviously we're not going to expect that from Hot Wheels, but we do actually have our mud flaps kind of casted in there. That's cool. They're metal. It's nice. Sticking with our back, you can see the engine in the back there where it should be. And then we just have a healthy dose of casted in details. This right here actually has an indentation. This has got the indentation. I mean, our huge wing in the back, separated, made of metal, not plastic. Yeah, just overall, casting is solid. So for our paint and deco, we've got this really cool kind of yellow and red with a touch of white livery, which is actually pretty close to a real-life livery that this car had. Obviously, it's not going to be perfect, especially sponsors and everything wise, like we would get out of like a Mini GT or something along those lines. But for a Hot Wheels, this is essentially what we come to expect, and honestly, I think it looks fantastic. I love it when they do those kind of homage liveries, and that's exactly what I would say this is. We've got plenty of sponsors decoed on the sides. We've got our 35 there. We've got a sponsor right here on the front wing, our 35 up here, and everything identical on the back. There's no sponsors up on the rear or on the top looking down or anything like that. But overall, it's realistic, matches a real-life car. I'll put a picture of a real-life livery in there somewhere. And yeah, it looks good. I think it was probably the perfect choice for the first edition, I would say, of this casting. Moving into our details, we'll make our way front to back here. So we do have our splitter kind of etched in there, and it's got, hard to see, but you can sort of make out the little etching of the details in there underneath this kind of front wing thingy-mabob. Looks really good. We mentioned earlier we do have headlights. They are plastic, so you don't have to worry about those ever being tampoed on. These kind of front grille things are all casted in, and there's texturing there. You can feel them. We got a little MG logo there. On top, we mentioned these are actually casted in, and we got some paint there. On to our side sections here. This intake, I mentioned it is casted in, however, we didn't get any kind of tampos on either side. I think that's kind of something that would have made it look good, just a little bit, one extra little mile, is to put just some black or some gray in there to make it look more like the intake. But other than that, not too bad. On to our taillight section here. We did already mention the mud flaps, but we do have our taillights tampoed on. We've got some reflectors here. We have our exhaust tips down here. And we have this little section here where it looks like it's kind of like a license plate kind of area. It's a cool thing to note is that this is actually what's kind of holding the back end of the casting together. So if we look at the base here, there's no secondary rivet. And that is because this is a piece of the base and it kind of goes up and into this little section here, which is a nice, cool way of keeping this together and not putting a post down the center in the windows where our engine bay is. And I think it looks really cool, and that was a pretty nice way to engineer it to not disturb the look too much. For our roll test, this is a Hot Wheel. It is a Hot Wheel Premium, but it still rolls silky smooth. Moving into our pros and cons, we've got a couple pros. The first big one is that this is just really well done. As far as I know, this is the only 1/64th MG Metro 6R4. I didn't actually research that. I'm just spitballing because I don't think I've ever seen another one in 1/64th. So we'll just say that this one is not common in 1/64th. So here's a really good chance to get a mass-produced version, I guess, that won't be too hard to get your hands on. And then in addition to that, I just think it looks really good. The livery choice was perfect, and I'm glad to have this car in my Group B collection. That being said, though, we do have a big con, and that is, at least for right now, this is currently exclusive to Team Transports. So this is the casting's first release, and it was a Team Transport, which means if you're like me, and you don't care whatsoever for the transporter, you have to buy both the transporter and the car just to get the car. So you're going to be spending about $17 on a Hot Wheels Premium, which is, yeah, that stings the old wallet pretty good. But maybe you can trade the haulers away or sell them or something along those lines just to recoup a little bit. I personally like to trade my haulers if I can, but yeah, so a little bit pricey to get the hold of this one. And now for some quick size comparisons. Here we have it next to some other Group B monsters with the Ford RS200 and the Audi Sport Quattro. So with that, it is now time to give my overall score. So I think I'm going to give this one a 9 out of 10. So I wasn't super duper excited for this one. I didn't really know much about this car to begin with, but I did some research into it, and the more I researched into it, the cooler the car became to me. That being said, everything about this casting and release in general is not perfect, but close enough. And I think that's a pretty good description of the casting and everything overall. It looks really, really good in hand, and looking at it in person got me a lot more excited about it in general, to the point where I'm really looking forward to a future release, another deco of some sort, whatever it is, but I'll be happy to add a second version of this to my collection. And overall, I just feel like the 9 out of 10 works because it's perfect. It's not perfect, but it's close enough. And I definitely think it's one that you will be glad to add to your collection. And that's all I have for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you hit like. Make sure you subscribe if you are new. And let me know in the comments down below what your thoughts are on this particular model. And I will see you in the next video.